Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar entitled Opportunities to Participate in the Second National Capital Region Interoperability Forum. I'm going to go ahead to our first slide. First, I want to let you know that the Interop Forum is made possible by funding from the Interoperable Emergency Communication Grant Program, or IECGP. They contracted support from Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab and the All Hazards Consortium. And the two-day forum is a follow-up to last year's September 2010 IECGP NCR forum. For today's webinar, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the purpose of the forum. What are we looking to get out of it? Who are we expecting to attend? What does the schedule, the agenda look like for that two-day event? What are we covering during that agenda? And then we'll reserve some time at the end of the hour for some Q&A. Okay, at this time, let's introduce John Contestable. John?
Thanks, Laura. I hope everyone's fine today. As Laura said, this is actually an interoperability conference workshop for the National Capital Region. As those of you who are in Homeland Security Emergency Management know, communications interoperability has been a real challenge, and that is to make sure that systems can talk to one another. We are taking a look at interoperability in the NCR very broadly. You'll see that we want to talk about, as you can see from the purpose for the forum slide, you'll see that we want to talk about policy issues, governing interoperability. We want to talk about governance structures. As you share technology platforms and start to work with your partners, governance becomes a big issue. We're going to talk about key projects that are going on in the area. The Urban Area Security Initiative grant monies has funded a number of projects in a variety of areas to improve interoperability, and so we're going to look at some of those projects. We're going to look at present and future technologies, address some common standards and some actionable best practices. The purpose of the forum is to integrate and coordinate the planning efforts across the region. The National Capital Region is a fairly complex region with a dozen counties or so, it seems, and municipalities, and you have two states with the state of Virginia and the state of Maryland. You have the District of Columbia. So it is a multi-jurisdictional, multi-state environment that makes it challenging to coordinate across all of that. We hope to produce a forum report to the Urban Area Security Initiative leadership, as well as the interoperability community in the UASI area. On the next slide, as Laura mentioned, this is funded by an IECGP grant to Frederick County, Maryland, and under that grant, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab was retained to help plan the forum and do some of the work associated with the goals of that grant. And we turned around and reached out to the All Hazards Consortium to help us put together this workshop, since they do that so well. On the next slide, you'll see who's involved in the Executive Steering Committee. I'm not going to read every name, but you'll see that there's some statewide interoperability communications directors. Ray Lear is there. Chris McIntosh from Virginia is there. You'll also see some county folk. Jack Markey from Frederick County is involved. Wayne McBride from Prince George's County. Wanda Gibson from Fairfax County. Steve Emanuel is a CIO from Montgomery County. So we have a nice mix of communications people, IT people, and practitioners on the steering committee. On the next slide, we want to talk a little bit about forum audience. This will be the second one held in the region, and last year I guess we had over 300 attendees. And the people that will attend are, as I mentioned, the SWICs, the Statewide Interoperability Coordinators. In fact, you'll see later we had them on the panel on a couple of occasions. You'll see local CIOs, radio systems managers are going to be there. We have one session targeted for them. Emergency managers will be there. IT people, public safety officials, law enforcement, medical folk. There'll be some federal folk there too. DHS, S&T, Science and Technology will be sending some folk, as well as FEMA. So it'll be a nice mix of state and locals, federal, and across multiple disciplines. Some of the topics on the next slide you can see are regional governance for these networks and applications. We have a session targeting radio systems. There's a lot of need for technical coordination in the region. We have multiple 800 systems, some 700 megahertz radio systems rolling out. How do you coordinate key sharing? How do you handle technical documentation? How do you plan for communications exercises? So there's a lot of work to be done on the radio side. We're also looking at the strategic issues associated with planning with federal entities. In the National Capital Region, you got so many federal jurisdiction, federal agencies located in D.C. Coordinating with them is always a challenge in terms of making sure it's timely and making sure who knows how to talk to whom. And we hope to continue to work on that. On the next slide, we're also going to address broadband. For those of you who follow broadband, there's legislation at the federal level that's being entertained to move what's known as the D block and the 700 megahertz megahertz spectrum to public safety. So we want to hear the latest on that. We also want to talk about implementation in the National Capital Region. The NCR Washington area was a test bed for one of the pilot implementations of broadband. So we want to get the latest on that. Maryland is rolling out a narrowband 700 megahertz radio system, and so we want to talk about that in terms of the ramifications for coordination with other systems in the region. We also have a session on GIS. There's a project underway in the National Capital Region under a UASI grant to use VUSA, which is a federal DHS S&T initiative, as an integration platform so that the local GIS systems can publish into that space and make their data available to the other partners in the region. So we're going to hear more about where that project is and where that project needs to go. Some of you may be aware that there's a video camera integration project in the National Capital Region looking at how you can share video images from these various systems across the region with one another. A pilot site has been stood up to do just that. That will be demonstrated, and we'll talk about where that project needs to go further. I know a lot about that because that happens to be a project I'm working on here at APL. Continuing to forum topics, we're going to talk about radio, as I mentioned. CAD RMS, the state of Maryland has a contract which they've let to do CAD interoperability across the entire state. We want to hear about that. There was also a pilot between, I believe, Arlington and Fairfax counties to look at CAD integration there, so we're going to learn about the latest on those two systems. 911 Next Generation, we've invited some folks from NENA, the National Emergency Numbers Association, to talk about what the status of that deployment and evolution. We want to find out where we stand in the National Capital Region on rolling out 911 Next Gen. Social media. You can't go to any conference agenda today without seeing some session on how do you utilize social media for emergency management and public safety. And so we have an exciting speaker that actually is local in Maryland that has done some national presentations on this subject that we're going to have a presentation from her. As far as forum speakers go, it's going to be a mixture. We're going to have some plenary sessions in the morning in which the group will hear on a big topic like broadband or social media, and then we plan to have breakout sessions in the afternoon. And the breakout sessions will be staffed by a combination of practitioners and experts in the field. So we'll have, like we like to say when we do all hazards events, we like to have people who own the problem on the panel discussing what the issues are, what they're wrestling with. So we kind of are looking for, in the morning, kind of a big picture plenary approach on this is what's happening nationally, this is what's happening from the big picture standpoint. And then as we go into breakout sessions, it'll be more like, what are we doing about that in the NCR? And where do we need to be going in the NCR? And what are some actionable next steps? The breakout sessions, we hope, will be on the order of 30 to 50 people in each of the breakouts, and so we hope to have some discussion between the panelists and the participants in the audience. So we hope to make it very interactive. That's a little bit about what's planned, who should attend, what topics we're going to cover, and now I'll turn it back over to Laura to talk a little bit about some of the logistics and schedule and so forth. Laura?
Hey, thanks, John. So just to confirm, the dates of the event are September 14th and 15th. We know that's right around the corner. We have great facility at the Silver Spring Civic Center. It's a new facility and has a lot of space. We can fit up to about 300 people there, and it provides for several breakouts as well. There's a Courtyard by Marriott nearby that's offering a rate of $209 as a room block. This information can be found on the All Hazards Consortium website. But they're only holding it for about a week. So I wanted to bring this up just in case anyone is interested in coming, is out of town, and they do need lodging. That's something that you should think about pretty quickly. We have space for about 20 tabletops in the foyer just outside the ballroom. So we're hoping that we can utilize that space. This just gives sort of a bird's eye view of the schedule. On day one, Wednesday, September 14th, we'll have registration and a networking breakfast in the morning. We are looking for a sponsor for the breakfast. Then we'll have some plenary and panel discussions. We'll have a lunch. Again, we have an open sponsor spot here. And then we'll move into some breakout sessions before we head into the reception hour, all being held at the Civic Center, and all throughout the day the exhibits will be open as well. Day 2 has a similar mock-up you can see from this chart here on your screen. For those of you on audio only, it starts with registration and breakfast again. We have panel sessions throughout the day. We can have up to 4 breakouts at a time. Hopefully we'll have a lunch sponsor so we can provide a nice lunch for everyone. We'll have some breakout sessions and end around 4:15 p.m. As John Contestable mentioned before, we do have several breakouts. This is how they're grouped. Breakout session 1, as an attendee, you'll get to choose one of the 3, NCR, net governance, web EOC, regional issues, or regulatory issues. Then we'll move into breakout session 2, where you can choose one of 4 sessions, Maryland, D.C., Virginia issues, or you can sit in and learn more about the National Capital Region projects and solutions briefings.
Yeah, Laura, could I chime in there?
Yeah.
I want to highlight the NCR projects and solutions briefings because the intent was projects will be briefed out in these breakouts. For example, you see web EOC in session 1. There's going to be discussion about the use of that application across the emergency management agencies in the NCR. So there'll be projects discussed in some of the breakouts, but we also found that there are some projects that probably ought to be briefed out that don't fit particularly well within the topic breakouts that we've identified here. So we have this NCR projects and solutions briefings as a place to have some of those projects present. So the intent is the NCR projects will be briefed out by probably government folk talking about various solutions they're using or they're employing. A couple that come to mind in the National Capital Region are CapWin and RITIS, if you've heard of that, the Regional Integrated Transportation Information System. Both of those are supported by the University of Maryland, and they don't fit well within some of the other breakout sessions. So they're going to be presenting in this NCR project. And then the solutions briefing side of it is we wanted to provide an opportunity for our project sponsors, for the workshop sponsors, for the commercial providers to brief out, if you will, case studies of how some of their products are being used, because we want this, again, to be kind of an educational session where someone in the NCR could see how a product might be used in, say, Boston, in, say, a public safety application environment. And we'd like to have that presented in this session so that people will learn of other applications and other places across the country. So again, it'd be kind of a opportunity to present your solutions in a case study kind of framework as an educational opportunity for the NCR folk. There's this session, which is breakout session 2 on the 14th,